freedom, man. That's what it's all about. You've got to groove on freedom, like the good book says.
Welcome. You are listening to What on Earth is Happening. This show will discuss the topics of human consciousness, mind control, natural law, the occult, and all issues that affect the freedom of the people of Earth. What on Earth is Happening will endeavor to shine light upon the darkness of our world and to offer empowering solutions to the problems we face as humanity approaches its critical moment of choice. And now, here is your host, Mark Passio.
Welcome, one and all. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening here on the Oracle Broadcasting Radio Network. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. The network's website, of course, is oraclebroadcasting.com. Today is Sunday, October 28th, 2012. This show is live every Sunday from 5 to 7 p.m. East Coast time. That's 4 to 6 p.m. Central, and we have a great show lined up for you here today. We're going to be doing an all call-in show again this week. Your calls, the callers will make the show and set the topics for today. Last week, we continued to talk about solutions, and we went over 2 solutions in one show. The power of true positive thinking, not what many in the New Age movement term positive thinking, but what true positive thinking can really do for one's outlook and attitude, and the responsibility to teach others once you know the dynamic that is really taking place in our world and have a handle on that dynamic. You have a responsibility to bring that information to others, whether they want to hear it or not. And we talked about ways to go about doing that, and we also talked about the power of words and how we could do a disservice to others by baby spoon feeding them information instead of helping to explain to them exactly how they're creating their own reality so that they can become in themselves responsible adults when it comes to the kind of energy that they're putting out there into the universe that is ultimately shaping the experience that we're all having. So let me give the call-in number right here at the top of the show. People can call in and get in the queue. And it's anything you want to talk about regarding any solutions that we have touched on. I want to try to keep the show solution-oriented. I want to hear from you regarding how you think the dynamic is going. Where do you think we're headed? What do you think about teaching others? The section that I did on teaching others. Are you engaged in that process? And if you are engaged in it, how is that going for you? What kind of techniques are you employing? If you're not engaged in doing that work, why not? That's what I really want to talk about here today, and I want to hear people's overall outlook on the nature of things as they stand right now. In other words, where we're at as a species, where people think we're heading, and what we can do possibly to turn things around. So the call-in number for the show is 866-841-1065. Once again, the call-in number, 866-841-1065. That's a toll-free number. Call in and get in the queue, and we'll be taking calls throughout the show. I do have a couple of quick event announcements, not too many today. Of course, the Free Your Mind Conference, the Free Your Mind 2 Conference, coming up here in the city of Philadelphia in late April of next year. Free Your Mind 2 is a conference on consciousness, mind control, and the occult. taking place here in Philadelphia, April 25th, 26th, and 27th, 2013. Free Your Mind returns to Philadelphia with a 3-day conference featuring top caliber whistleblowers from across the country who will shed light upon our world's problems and bring forward empowering solutions. This unique event will build upon the success of the first Free Your Mind conference in 2011 with a continued focus to spread awareness on the topics of consciousness, mind control, subversive occult influences, holistic body, mind, spirit health, and solution-oriented approaches to the problems humanity faces in these challenging times. The location for the Free Your Mind 2 conference is the beautiful Arch Street Meeting House here in Philadelphia at 320 Arch Street. The doors will open each day of this 3-day conference at 8 o'clock a.m. The featured speakers, we have 22 featured speakers so far, probably going to add 2 more to complete the lineup at about 24 speakers. The featured speakers right now, as it stands, include Alan Steinfeld, Alfred Weber, Andrew Bashago, Ben Stewart, Bob Tuskin, Kathy O'Brien, Curtis Davis, Dr. Dream, Frater X, Freeman Fly, Jan Irvin, Jay Parker, Jim Fetzer, Larkin Rose, Laura Eisenhower, Lennon Honor, Loren Moray, myself, Mark Passio, Mark Phillips, Randall Carlson, Ross Ben, and Sonia Barrett. Advanced ticket prices. For the Thursday conference, $30. For the Thursday meet and greet, speaker meet and greet on Thursday evening featuring, including vegetarian cuisine, $20. For the Friday and Saturday conference, Friday conference $40 and Saturday conference $40. And if you want the whole package, all 3 days of the conference plus the speaker meet and greet with a meal on Thursday night, $120. For more speaker information, for speaker bios, and more ticketing information and information on how to order tickets, please visit the Free Your Mind Conference website, the Free Your Mind 2 website at freeyourmindconference.com. That's www.freeyourmindconference.com. I've been telling people over the last couple of weeks, an advanced ticket sale is better than even making a donation to this conference. We are going to be able to pay for all of the speakers' travel expenses and lodging expenses, which need to be done well in advance, up front, okay, if you order your tickets in advance. Now, we're going to have a schedule probably drawn up within the next few weeks. But if you plan on being in Philadelphia for the Free Your Mind conference, especially if you're just coming out for all of the days of the conference, consider getting the total package for the reduced price of $120 in advance, and that will really help us to bring the speakers in and not have to shell out so much money out of pocket. So again, an advanced ticket sale, better than a donation. And also, if people live in the Philadelphia area and are interested in helping out with the organization of this conference, we still need help. Please get in touch with me at mark@freeyourmindconference.com. I know a couple of people did respond, and I will be getting back to you this week if you responded to that with some details on how you can help us out in the organization for this event. Okay, last week I neglected to mention an announcement that I wanted to talk about, and that is the What on Earth is Happening website. The videos, all the videos for the website are now in HTML5 format. That means that they do not require a browser plugin to play in the web browser, and that they will also be able to be played in any handheld devices that anyone may be using to access the site. So video on the What on Earth is Happening website is now all HTML5 compliant. Very closely connected with that announcement is that I have set up a YouTube channel for What on Earth is Happening. That's a long time coming. I should have probably done that a long time ago, but there is now a YouTube channel for What on Earth is Happening. And you could visit the YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/whatonearth93. So I'll say that again. The YouTube channel for What on Earth is Happening is now online at youtube.com/whatonearth93. What on Earth, all one word, and then the number 93. All of the What on Earth is Happening videos are there. I also have some videos up from my speeches at the End the Fed rally. I have other lectures that I've given, including the Wizard of Oz presentation that I gave a couple of years back. And coming to both the YouTube channel and the What on Earth is Happening website, I will be posting the entire Matrix series, the lecture that I did on the Matrix trilogy called the Matrix Trilogy Decoded, and I will also be posting the recent lecture that I gave, the presentation that I gave at the MUFON PA East Coast Conference, which was entitled Morality and Disclosure. So that's coming to both the What on Earth is Happening video section, the What on Earth is Happening website videos section, and also the What on Earth is Happening YouTube channel. The ad-free, last event announcement is the ad-free chip-in for the What on Earth is Happening radio show needs to raise $1,000 by January 31st in order to keep the show ad-free through the February, March, and April time period. The fund for the ad-free chip-in currently stands at $200, and we haven't yet entered the month of November. So we're just at the end of October, and we have $200 in the fund so far. So good work on people making kind and generous donations to the ad-free chip-in. Please, let's keep that going so we can keep the show ad-free for both hours. Okay, so today is an all-call-in show, and the topic is solutions. I'm not limiting the topic to any particular solution, although I would like to hear people's take on the show that I did last week on the power of true positive thinking as opposed to what the New Age movement talks about in regards to positive thinking, and also the responsibility that we each have once we know to then speak the truth into the universe and to teach others what we have come to understand. So, the call-in number, once again, 866-841-1065. Once again, the call-in number for the show, 866-841-1065. We already have a couple of callers, so let's go right to the phones. Here we go. Area code 602, you're live on What on Earth is Happening. Yes, there's a lot of noise coming through your line. I don't know if you could do anything to clean that up. Okay. Almost completely unintelligible. So I'm going to let you go, and if you could call in on a different line, I'll bump you right back to the top of the queue. But unfortunately, there's so much static in your line that it's impossible for us to take that call because we really can't hear what you're saying as it was coming through on the air. So please call back, and I'll definitely bump you up to the top of the line if you call back in. Okay, let's go to another caller. Caller, you're live on What on Earth is Happening. What do you have for us?
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, in context of positive thinking. Well, I guess one thing I'm doing right now is I got this speech I'm trying to write for. I got this speech class because I remember you saying something about the world needs more teachers and stuff, but I think my problem personally is that I'm not really sure the right way to scientifically kind of go about disseminating, because I know with the right tools. So that's why I'm taking all these speech classes, all these writing classes right now, and I'm giving my speech actually on the vaccine controversy.
Yes.
And I know the government's trying to mandate children take that. So
yes,
just kind of getting that out there, and then for an argumentative paper, which I'm trying to get into my college, trying to kind of spread it around through the faculty there, is something with I want to focus at something on with the cult of domination, kind of the whole authority domination type thing.
Right.
So
well, regarding your confidence level, I think, that's something that you have to work on. And just if you know that you're standing in truth, just continue to put the information out there. And even if it isn't the greatest rhetorical argument that is going to 100% convince the most left-brained of people out there, you know that you're doing the right thing by putting the information out there as a seed for people to take. And even if a few people look into it, it's helping them, so it's making a difference, and it's helping people that that information may not ordinarily have reached. So that's really what we need to stay focused on. We're reaching those who right now can be reached, and who knows who you're going to wake up as a result of that process. Who knows who's going to look into this information and really wake up fully all the way, and possibly even become a teacher in their own right. So, I would say the main thing when it comes to this is, if you know that you're onto something, you know that you're onto something that is good for people and will help to alleviate suffering, don't second guess yourself. Try to develop that confidence that you know that you're standing in the right, you're doing the right thing, and then just do it. So what you're doing, I think, is great, and put that information out there for people, and those who are ready to take it will take it, and they'll run with that ball, and they'll do something good with the information that you're giving to them.
And I had one more thing.
Sure.
What do you think about different types of renewable energy? Like, say we didn't have this, like everybody was fighting over Africa kind of thing.
Right.
Say that Africa actually had, with the Sahara, they had this access to like solar power and geothermal power, the wind power, and we actually applied, instead of our creative technology all going towards war.
Right.
If our creative technology was towards Tesla's kind of work. I mean,
sure.
Africa is completely rich as far as potential wise.
Well,
it's amazing that it's so interfered with.
Yeah, absolutely. I've talked about this a lot on the show, and people know that I'm, a member of the Tesla Science Foundation here in Philadelphia, and am really trying to put out the word regarding the fact that these renewable, clean energy, free energy technologies have been with us for over a century and are actively suppressed throughout the world because they want to keep people in the paradigm of manufactured lack. When you're in lack, because everyone needs energy to live, when you're in the perception that there is lack everywhere and there's only limited amounts to go around, that puts you into the R-complex fight or flight fear response mode of the brain. And from that modality of consciousness, that's how you can easily be controlled. Those who are controlling energy on the planet, controlling those resources, are ultimately controlling people. The control of energy is the control of people. I've said that hundreds of times and will continue to say it hundreds more because it's true. Those who are in control of the current energy paradigm are ultimately controlling the people of the planet. So all these new free energy technologies, we need to break that open out into discussion in the world as much as possible so that people know not only is this a potential, not only is it possible, it is already developed and has been waiting in the wings, so to speak, for over 100 years, since the days of Nikola Tesla and even arguably a little bit before Tesla. These technologies are real and they are in existence and they are actively being suppressed. There's hundreds of stories about the suppression of free energy, Tesla-type technology, cold fusion, other types of generators that are basically over-unity devices. And again, these big oil cartels, they want to maintain their domination because they're living high off the hog from all of the people consuming the types of completely obsoleted fuels that they're putting out there to them in dribs and drabs, and they think that they can continue that indefinitely. And it's possible that they can if people refuse to wake up to it, because I do not believe that oil is a non-renewable resource. I think it is something that the earth perpetually generates. It's like blood in the human body. When you take a pint of blood out of us, the body eventually manufactures more blood. It's not like you take a pint out and the body stays at that depleted level forever. It's the same with oil. It's like the blood of the earth, and it keeps regenerating it as our hemoglobin regenerates our blood in the body. So they could keep this scheme going indefinitely if people don't wake up to it and realize that they're being had. So that's my take on all renewable energy. I think I've made that very clear throughout the entire series of shows that I've done, and that's why I stand so strongly behind the work of people that are trying to bring the science and the technologies of someone like Nikola Tesla out into the open, like what the Tesla Science Foundation here in Philadelphia has been doing over the last several years. Also, the types of technologies that we're talking about, not only are they being suppressed for the general public for energy usages and energy requirements, but they have been weaponized. They have been turned toward their worst possible purpose of, mass murder and genocide even, and they're being ramped up and scaled up to the most unimaginably horrific weapons of mass destruction that one can even imagine. And I would endeavor to say they're even being deployed at a lower level scale on targeted individuals to harass and silence people who are whistleblowers and want to come out and talk about the fact that we live in a completely totalitarian controlled system and a controlled paradigm. So these technologies not only are being actively suppressed for the right reasons, they have been weaponized and developed for all the wrong, immoral reasons and applications of war as well. It's something people really need to come forward and talk about out in the open more and more, and help people to understand. You're driving in a car that's burning this, so-called fossil fuel that needs to be taken out of the earth and refined, and that hasn't been necessary for over 100 years. People think that one of the big arguments for statism is who will maintain the roads. And I keep asking people, why do you imagine that we need roads with the level of technology that we already possess today, now? Not in 20 years or 50 years or 100 years, now, today, that is actively being suppressed. We don't need roads today. We can rip up all the roads. We have technology that is anti-gravitic in nature, that could be used in a totally free energy system that wouldn't need to be plugged into any electrical grid. And the prototypes for this were developed over 100 years ago when Tesla lived. And we don't even need these ancient dinosaur technologies and ways of thinking in 2 dimensions, flat to the ground, that we're thinking about these things now. People, again, it's all about limiting what people believe is possible. Not only what they believe is possible, but what they're willing to accept that already does exist. Things not only are possible, they're already in existence, and people, their mind is so shut down they can't accept that. So that's my take on the whole, suppressed energy paradigm. And I've talked about it on past shows a ton, and done shows with individuals from the Tesla Science Foundation who are involved in bringing this type of work forward. So definitely check some of that material out in the podcast archives.
Right.
So
that was quite a bit.
Great.
No, I totally agree with you. And I don't know. I can imagine it being pretty bad. I'm actually looking to get into my college. I'm looking to get into the renewable energy and architecture and stuff, so I can work on that. Like, getting the idea of, if we didn't, there's no need for this whole scarcity-based, I guess,
yes,
economy. Because the internet gives you is pretty much like free education.
Absolutely.
It's amazing now what the internet is. It's if you want to know the state of the world, you can find it on there. You can look at the worst things you could possibly find, and then that's the state of the really, really bad, the shadow part that nobody sees. If you want to break it down, like how Carl Jung might break it down.
That's exactly
the collective shadow. You can find it out. It's terrible. It's out there. That's that satanic stuff. But then, but then there's also so many ways to connect with other people, ways to learn, ways to innovate, ways to watchdog, watchdog our leaders and watchdog what's going on in other countries and stuff. So it's really that's where the modern myth of man, I think, is being created right now, just over that medium.
I mean, that's really great points that you've brought up there. And, I want to comment on that. What the caller just talked about regarding the internet, the power of the internet to help us to understand the truth. That's why this has to be protected at all costs. We have the opportunity to learn about what's going on all around us and learn anything that we want, that we have a desire or a thirst for knowledge to learn, and it's at our fingertips. And this has never been available to humanity in this way before this modern time period. And it's a precious resource that we shouldn't squander. I was talking to a family member the other day, and this individual was saying, well, how do you know all the things that you know? And I said, well, hey, you have one of these truth devices right in your hand, just like I do, just like we all have access to. You have a computer, you have a cell phone, you have a tablet, whatever you're using, tap into the internet. You can learn about anything you want to know about. You could download books from throughout the ages and read deep wisdom and philosophy. You could, read about anything technical and learn how to do things. There's no limit to what you can learn now. Are we going to use these devices and the access to this incredible resource of knowledge known as the internet for frivolous things? Are we going to use it to play games? Are we going to use it to entertain ourselves? Or are we going to use it for our edification and our growth? And then helping to put more knowledge out there for others, to share freely with others so that they can also edify themselves and become better people. It's a choice, and that choice is available to us, and we have to choose wisely. So great points, caller. And best of luck with your, foray into true education, hopefully, when it comes to learning about these energy technologies, and then get involved. And I highly recommend going to a resource like the Tesla Science Foundation and getting involved in their work, or any other Tesla groups for that matter, because that's at the forefront of this emerging field of science. And I think breakthroughs are going to happen in these fields over the next several years that are going to make, the existing paradigm that we are locked into seem almost, completely crazy and unimaginable from where we will be. And if we do it right, if we do it for the right reasons, for the betterment of humanity, instead of weaponizing, technologies to kill people more efficiently, like the military-industrial complex wants us to do, then, if we do it for the right reasons, then we're going to see a transformation in human consciousness that is going to be, partially driven by these emerging technologies and new energy technologies. So, best of luck to you in that regard. So, let's go to another caller. Here we go. All right, caller on Skype. You're live on What on Earth is Happening. Welcome.
Hello, Mark.
Hey. Who am I speaking with?
Can you hear me fine?
Yes. What's your name?
This is Will from New Hampshire.
Will, how are you?
I'm doing just great. And I'm really
Will, you're fading a little bit. Can you come in a little bit closer to the microphone and speak strongly into it?
Just a second. Volume settings here. Is that better?
Go. That's much better. Thank you.
All right. I don't know why the volume control is going nuts on me, so I hope it stays. Can you hear me fine?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I wanted to thank you and let you know that your work has really inspired me to get out there and start learning some more and doing the best I can to figure out what's going on in this world.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Now, the conversation with the energy before,
yes,
I found that to be kind of interesting because I was looking at Einstein's equation, E equals mc squared.
Right.
And if you look at that, it's energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. Now, when you look at that equation, you really got to break it down and figure out what mass and the speed of light are really describing. Mass, to me, equals space, while the speed of light squared equals time.
Okay.
So really, energy is the synthesis of time and space. It's the current moment. It's the here and now.
Right. That's an interesting way of looking at it. And in that regard, would it not be infinite?
Yes, very much so, because we do have an infinite quality of space and time.
Right.
I agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. Now, when people take over the, I have to keep adjusting my volume. I don't know why it's going nuts.
Hey,
but
you're coming through fine now.
Okay. I hope it just stays there. It keeps creeping down on me. I don't know why that is. Really weird. Anyways, it's a level of dependency that the people are ending up in. They're ending up in a state of dependency because they're dependent on the systems that exist, which are not controlled by those people. So if they have to get their energy needs and requirements from somewhere. Who are they getting it from? They're getting it from these multinational corporations and these large fuel companies that are controlled by government and these corporate figureheads. It's really ridiculous to think about it that way, but it's true.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what they want. They want to feed off the needs of others, to have them dependent on them, to go to them for their resources, instead of tapping into the abundant wheelwork of nature, which is infinite and supplies infinitely to us without asking or demanding anything. And it isn't about owning nature. It isn't about just taking more than you need and hoarding, etc. It's about, what we require each day and using, what is within our need, not about greed and selfishness and just, using up, the take, make, and throw away mentality. That's not what I'm advocating here, in the sense that I'm saying that energy is infinite. I'm saying there is more than enough present for all of our need. And if we simply take the approach that energy itself is free, it's a gift of God, if you will. It's a gift of creation, if you will. No one has the right to control that and mete it out to people in dribs and drabs, in tiny increments that keeps people completely dependent, and also in a fight or flight modality over the perceived scarcity of it. That's not a right. It's not a human right to do that.
Exactly, and then you have to keep running around in that hamster wheel, that proverbial hamster wheel, to try to make the money so you can pay the rent and pay the fuel costs and pay for your heating and all of these different things.
Sure.
And that's the structure that humanity really has been in for the last several thousand years.
Right. I find it interesting that when I open up the topic of discussion to solutions in general, this is the first thing that has come forward, that people are recognizing that the control of energy is one of the major problems. It's one of the absolute major issues that we're facing, that we're up against, and the solution lies in overturning that energy paradigm. That's one of the biggest solutions. That's not one of the solutions that I've put on my solution section, but ultimately, perhaps it should be included in there. It certainly is. My solutions are more abstract and thought-based, and it's about changing our mind, so then therefore we can go and change these, this paradigm of energy that we're basing the whole planet upon. But absolutely, the overturn of the current outdated and immoral, the outmoded and immoral energy paradigm that we're all living on this planet is probably one of the ultimate solutions, and perhaps we should do, an entire show on that when it comes to solutions. Of course, I, really kind of did that when we talked with the people from the Tesla Science Foundation that talked about all the different energy technologies that were showcased at the last Tesla Science Conference. But absolutely, I think it's one of the most important things that we could discuss when we're talking about solution-oriented approaches.
And for the ultimate form of energy dependence, what is money?
That's right.
I mean, really, energy that feeds the entire structure, which makes all the, everything turn and everything work.
That's right.
But, I've got a YouTube channel. Can I throw the link out?
Sure.
Okay, it's What Makes It Tick.
YouTube.com/What Makes It Tick?
You bet.
Okay.
And I've included some of your work in there. I've got a 3-hour documentary. I do presentations with a whiteboard. A lot of it's esoteric. A lot of it's, I guess you could say magical based.
Okay.
But the information that I do is all, based in scientific principles, things that are evident logically. And I use things like the trivium to try to express myself. I do the best I can. I'm just one guy.
And that's all anybody can ask. Will, thanks so much. Yes.
Yeah, and my focus is on population control in particular. I don't mean eugenics. I mean just the different systems and structures of institutions that exist, and the fact that they are systems of population control.
Absolutely. That is going on out there without any doubt. And people will look around and, see, well, there is a whole lot of people concentrated into particular areas, and it's true. But it doesn't mean that if we changed our mind about the way, the manner in which we are living, and decided to make more sustainable systems, and to, instead of hoard people into compact, jam-packed cities where we're trucking in all the resources instead of growing the resources that we need all around us, the population would not be a factor whatsoever. The reason that it's a factor in most people's minds is because it's set up in a sense of energy dependency and lack, and manufactured lack. And that's because of the way that we're living in these concentrated regions that we call cities. If the population were to spread out and the population were to grow their energy resources that they need in terms of food around them every day in a sustainable way, this planet could sustain probably, I would endeavor to say, possibly 10 times the amount of population that we currently have now. And a lot of people will disagree with that, but that's my take on. I don't see that there being an overpopulation problem on Earth at all. I see there being a paradigm problem on Earth with how people think that we could continue to live in an unsustainable fashion, which isn't even possible.
Absolutely. Hey, thank you so much, Mark, for all that you do.
Great. Will, thank you so much. Great call. All right, let's move on to another caller. I'll give the call-in number once again. All 2 hours, your calls on solutions. Any solution-oriented approaches that you want to talk about. I would particularly like to hear from people about the responsibility to teach others and how they are doing that. And if they're not doing that yet, then why? The call-in number for the show to join us, toll-free, 866-841-1065. Once again, the call-in number, 866-841-1065. Let's go back to the phones. Area code 503. Area code 503. You are live on What on Earth is Happening. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you very much for taking my call. This is Anthony from Portland.
Anthony, how are you?
Just doing fine. On the responsibility thing, one thing I've done is I just bought a domain name, and my plan is to put a website on that and kind of document my process of what I'm going through, trying to wake up and whatnot. Other thing is I've been studying this Kybalion, and wondered if you would take a question on that.
Sure.
Well, anyway, on the principle of rhythm, they mentioned something in there called the law of neutralization.
Yes.
And there's another thing they call the law of compensation. And from my take on it is, the law of neutralization is everything's going to swing back. You're going to have pleasure and pain and whatnot. But by using the law of neutralization, which from my understanding is you basically bring yourself up to a higher plane, you can avoid that swing back into the negative and whatnot. And how do you do this is my question. My thought was you go into some kind of meditation. I've been sampling that too, but what's your take?
Well, I don't think that this could be interpreted in the literal sense that if you raise yourself to a certain vibration, you're going to phase out of physical existence and maybe not experience negative consequences in the physical domain of what's happening around us. That is not what this refers to. I would say that this refers to mental consequences and the consequences that govern our behaviors in the sense of natural law. So whereas the rest of the population may be experiencing all kinds of consequences because of how much that they are contributing their energy to the control system. If someone raises their consciousness up to a higher level and is no longer feeding that which is immoral, then the overall consequences to them in the general sense, in what is being generated for them to experience, will not be as harsh as many of the people who are ultimately serving that system, whether knowingly or unconsciously, as the effects that they will themselves experience. So I believe that this is about natural law consequences, not necessarily the fact that we might not experience the same physical results, the same physical things that are going on in the world. Like, let's say if there is a crackdown on American citizens in general, like there was in the Nazi regime, it's not to say that people may not experience the negative consequences of something that goes on a mass scale like that. Or if there is perhaps an Earth event, an actual Earth changes event that, affects the entire planet in some form or fashion. It's not to say that you're definitely going to be insulated against that, or you're going to be, in some kind of an energy cocoon protected from physical results in the world. I believe that what it's talking about here is that you're raising your consciousness up to a level of non-cooperation with evil, non-cooperation with immorality that other people are still contributing to and still going along with. And in doing that, the karmic consequences that you're going to experience in general in your lifetime, whether it be in this physical reality or another reality that you'll experience sometime in the future, you will not take on the brunt of those consequential effects as severely as many other people will who did not do that work upon themselves.
Yeah, right. It's I understand that just because you raise yourself to a higher level of consciousness doesn't mean that you're not going to experience what every other physical being on this planet experiences.
Right.
So you're going to have to experience that. But you think of it more as like just changing your consciousness. You change your frame of reference. The things happen, but they don't affect you the same way. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's not just about changing your mind. It's about changing your mind and then changing your actions. See, the actions have to follow the change in mind. If you know, again, the old phrase applies, to know and not to do is not to know. So if you know and you say that you understand, but you're really not changing your behaviors, then do you really know? Absolutely not. Real wisdom is in having an understanding of what's generating the experience and then changing your actions in accordance with natural law to then change the outward experience. So, the action part of that is the most important thing. And that's what would ultimately have to be changed if you really wanted to lessen the impact of those consequences on an individual scale or on a mass scale.
Oh, one last thing.
Sure.
I've been experimenting a little bit with these hemisync, these binaural beats.
Oh, yes.
Supposedly it's important. They give an effect like brain entrainment. And you're talking about balancing the different sides of your brain. They have been effective, but the one thing I found, if anybody wants to get into this, is don't drink caffeine the day that you're going to do this during the day.
I have some experience with this. I'm familiar with what you're talking about, and I do think that they're also pretty effective, and they work well. The caller is speaking about hemisync, which is there are sound patterns and frequencies that basically endeavor to, through listening to them with headphones, to help to bring both sides of the brain to balance through vibratory tones and energy. And it's a very interesting thesis that the people who put these out are working with, because we are all vibratory energy. And we do have resonances within the body and within the physiology and within the brain that can have the resonances, when applied to the physiology, can have an effect on the way certain structures and functions within the brain work. We are energy. We're existing in a sea of energy. And when you change the frequencies around us, then the physiological structures within the body can also be changed, healed, restructured. It's a very sound premise, actually. And I've actually used some of these myself in the past. You could download them on the internet, just type Hemisync, or you could buy them from some of the people that put these out. And I feel that they are effective frequency tools in helping to balance the hemispheres of the brain. Now, that being said, I'm not going to say you should rely on that totally, not read, not learn, not understand, not, work deeply upon the self even within a conscious state. But this can definitely help in a relaxed, almost meditative type setting to work on this in an ancillary way. So I think that they are effective, and I'm not telling everybody go and rush out and buy them, but look into it, research it, see if you find it of value, and if you do, then employ it, add it to your arsenal of other brain balance techniques and self-improvement techniques. But I definitely think there is something to it, and there is value in it.
Yeah, it's for people that have a problem with just a straight-up meditation. It gets you into that state quite a bit quicker.
Yes.
Anyway, that's it for the call. I want to say thanks, Mark. Take care, brother. Cheers.
Thanks, sir. You got it. Great call. Okay.
Hey.
Let's move on to another caller. Okay. Caller from Philadelphia. 215 area code. You are live on What on Earth is Happening. Welcome.
Hey, what's up, Mark? Tim here.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tim Smith, one of the organizers of the Free Your Mind 2 conference. Welcome, Tim.
Hey, man. I just wanted to, I got some things written down here on the topic of positive thinking.
Sure.
On secret movies, so I would like to try to cover some of my take on.
Sure. Tim, just speak up a little bit louder or come in a little bit closer to the phone. You're a little bit low on volume there. That's much better.
Okay.
Great.
All right. So when it comes to information, you always need to learn how to filter out the bad and take in the good.
Yes.
There is always good information within everything. Important to take from.
I think that's very powerful. Understanding that we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Even in many things we don't agree with, you can filter it and take the things that are true from it and leave the rest. So the filtration system, when applying it to information, many will call that the trivium process or the trivium method. It is very important in doing that, and also recognizing that even if, again, there are people we don't agree with, they could have made contributions in certain ways that are valuable and true. And then you can leave the rest. And the same is true for people you mostly agree with. They could put out certain things out there that are false, and that doesn't negate, or maybe, not entirely accurate, and that doesn't necessarily negate the good things that they put forward. I'll give an example, and then you can continue with the list there, Tim. But look at a lot of people are suspect of someone like Terence McKenna, who I say is like a mentor to me because of so much valuable information he put out, just because they don't like the fact that he talked about overpopulation. He bought into, during his lifetime, the overpopulation myth and accepted that into his worldview. So in that sense, was his worldview poisoned? Yes, partially it was. But that doesn't make him one of the bad guys just because he happened to fall for that aspect of what the eugenicists were putting out there and telling people that, it's all about the overpopulation of the world. It doesn't negate everything else that he talked about and make him an agent of some kind just because he happened to buy into this one aspect of worldview poisoning. So, it swings both ways. There are people out there who could be putting out tremendously positive, transformative information and tools for people, and they have some things that they aren't accurate on. And then there are people who, might really be the bad guys and are throwing out some elements of truth out there to lure people in. It's about being discerning and filtering the information to take what is true, is really transformative in a positive sense, and leaving the rest. So that's a great point, Tim. And I would say that goes a long way toward a solution, because it helps us really to purify all the methodologies that we're looking to distill here toward the ultimate solution of being truly free and being sovereign individuals and, living in a non-violent way and, being in the world but not being of the world, and really respecting the divinity and sovereignty in all others. And that's ultimately what we're trying, the distillation that we're trying to synthesize here, that will really truly transform this world for the positive for all of us. So that's a really, really poignant aspect, a very powerful point that you just made there about the way that we have to filter information. So, good point. What was your next point?
Okay. When it comes to the Secret movie, I think there is good to be taken from it.
Sure.
I think that good is that the law of attraction is real.
Yeah.
Consciousness and different types of thought, I think they exist within different vibrational constructs and their magnetic energy. And as you focus your mind on certain things that exist in a particular frequency, in that frequency will come to you, will come back to you in a synchronous manner. And as you practice controlling your mental focus, you will notice this type of synchronism happening to you all the time.
Absolutely. Let me add to that a little bit. Part of this, the true aspect of the law of attraction that they're putting forward in the New Age movement and in The Secret, is that if you believe you can or you believe you can't, either way you're right. So if your focus is constantly on, that's not possible, then the intelligent field of creation that exists all around us is going to rearrange the world to make that not possible, because that's what you believe. That's what you are insisting that is true. So many people say, well, it's not possible for people to really understand rights, for everybody to understand rights, for that to be common sense knowledge. I hear this from people all the time. I say, look, the solution is everybody simply has to know what a right is and what a right is not. Or in other words, what a wrong is. And then they have to be willing to extend that courtesy of, choosing the right over the wrong when it comes to their interactions with other people. Oh, they say they want that for themselves and they don't want to be wronged by others, but they have to be willing to simply do that, to live that way, to put that into practice in their own life when it comes to their interactions with others. And you have people say, oh, that can't be. Everyone will not do that. Well, if that's how you think about it, then probably the universe is going to rearrange things to make it happen that way for you. You're going to envision that it's not possible. It's not possible. Then what are you going to be doing to make that the reality? Nothing, because you didn't think it was possible, so you won't put any energy behind it. That's why so many people are not active. They don't believe that it's possible to do anything about the situation that we're in. And again, that's what the dominators want to control. The sense of possibility is what they're ultimately trying to control. If they have you in that level of mind control, you're done. Like I said, the ultimate form of mind control is the extermination of the imagination. What you are willing to perceive as possible, if they can control that, they got you. They got you, and there is no escape. But if that is free, if the imagination can roam free, then your mind can envision possibility. And if you can envision possibility, then you're going to be willing to put your willpower behind that vision to make it a reality. So, great point, Tim. And I think that is the true law of attraction and the true way that we're going to generate and create our own reality. And it's all about possibility, what we think is possible, and again, then what we're willing to put our energy and focus and willpower behind it to create that possibility in reality. So, good point.
Yeah, the Secret, they kind of tell you not to look at positive, not to look at negative things. I think it's a little different. You need to look at the negative in a positive way, and turn the negative into a positive, like true alchemy.
Right.
And, learning from that negative so you can overcome it. And if you don't focus on the negative, you can never overcome that negative situation.
That's right. Learning from mistakes, learning in the apophatic sense. In other words, understanding what not to do. To look at the negative is to say, hey, this isn't working. And now I'm understanding that doesn't work. And I'm going to learn from that. And I'm going to change the behavior. But if you don't look at the shadow material, if you don't look at the demon side of things, so to speak, you're not going to learn from that. And the apophatic methodology of learning is probably the strongest. Again, direct knowledge of something in the way of you did something, it gave you the wrong result, is probably one of the most powerful teachers. Again, I give the example of a kid who touches a flame over a hot stove. Did he have to experience that? No, he didn't have to experience it. But I guarantee you that's going to be an even better teacher when he gets his fingers burned and blisters up his hand than someone telling him that's hot, and because it's hot, you shouldn't touch it because there are negative consequences for putting your hand over that flame. Him doing it himself in contravention to the warning is going to teach him for all time, for the rest of his life, and he's never going to forget that lesson. And, maybe that's what humanity is trying to do here, to go directly into the flames themselves, because they don't want to learn from word teaching, from the teachings of words and communication. They are only going to be satisfied if they go into the prison themselves. But unfortunately, I don't know if there's any turning back from that. I think just burning a few fingers is a little bit different than what humanity is seemingly trying to do here by stepping into the big flames, of a prison planet, so to speak. And there might not be any return from that abyss, which we're seemingly so keen to go over the cliff and directly into. But that gnosis, that direct experience of the negative, is a powerful transformative tool. And again, it's one of the best teachers. I believe, I haven't definitely decided yet, but I am leaning toward making my talk at the Free Your Mind conference, Free Your Mind 2 conference, about this event, about this dynamic. The experience of chaos and the embrace of the potential for chaos may just be my topic at the event, and I'm going to be deciding that over the next month or two. But that seems to be what I'm leaning toward, because people really need to understand that chaos is not necessarily the enemy here. It can be a powerful teacher. It is one of what I call the two teachers. So, Tim, stay with us. We'll be right back after the station break. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening.
Sleep. Stay asleep. Obey. When he looks at it with his eyes, it's what we see. When he looks at it with the sunglasses, he's seeing the same things all the way through, the subliminal, symbolically you couldn't see. Obey, no independent thought, don't think for yourself.
I wear my sunglasses at night.
Welcome back, everyone. What on Earth is Happening? Here on the Oracle Broadcasting Radio Network. Today is Sunday, October 28th, 2012. We're into the second hour of the show. Let's go back to the phones. Tim, are you still with us? You were talking about some of the positive aspects of the secret and the law of attraction when it comes to positive thinking.
Yes, I'm here.
Great.
So I think consciousness and thought, it all exists in a matter of vibration. And as you raise your vibration, higher consciousness will come back to you. And if you exist in a lower base desire type of vibration, this is where you're going to exist in life.
Yep.
I think the way to raise your vibration is to learn from your negative experiences in life and problems that exist around it. So it's not to not look at the negative, but to look at it as deeply as you can and learn from it and raise up so then you can from it.
Exactly.
I think that's what we really need to get out of the the law of attraction there.
Sure. And if we don't do that, what was the suffering for? What did we gain? What was the net gain for having gone through that experience? Nothing. So I totally agree. That is what the reason for the existence of the negative aspects are. And if we don't pay attention to them and ignore them, as many in the New Age movement would have us do, we are completely squandering the lesson. It absolutely is about looking at and learning from the negative experience without any question. And we've talked about that a lot here on the show and talked about how that is a deception in the New Age movement to not talk about the negative things that are going on all around us, because, again, those are some of the most profound lessons that we could learn from. So great point, Tim. What else do you have?
As from learning from the negative, this is how we raise our consciousness and the vibrational frequency that we exist in. And as we change our frequency, all new information will appear, and a new life will emerge for us.
Yes.
And I think it's all a matter of focus, able to focus our minds, and a matter of through focusing our minds, it's a matter of frequency too.
Sure. Tim, can I ask you to just speak up a little bit or come closer to the phone again? You're fading into the background a little bit again.
I'm sorry, that's my phone. Any better here?
Much better, thank you. Continue.
Okay, yeah. So as we learn from the negative and raise our frequency, all new love will emerge around us. And I think it's all a matter of being able to control our mental focus. So many people in the world nowadays do not know how to focus and control their focus throughout the day.
That's right. They're scattered, and their will is quite low when it comes to putting their attention on something and holding it there. And, the point that you made about if your desires are oriented toward base things, that's going to be your experience. If your desires are focused on the higher life, as it is known, then that's going to become your experience. If your desire is on freedom and truth and justice and harmony with natural law and respect, true respect and consciousness and responsibility, and, conscience, doing the right thing, then if all of our focus is on that, what do you think is going to express in the world? What we pay attention to is ultimately what manifests in the world. What is true about the so-called laws of attraction as put out by a lot of the New Age movement is energy flows where attention goes. This is 100% the case. That is true at all times and places. Where we put our attention, that's what's going to manifest in our reality. Without any doubt whatsoever, that is how it works. So then you simply look around and ask yourself the question, what are people focused on? What is their attention on a daily basis? And the answer, if we're being honest with ourselves, is junk, trash, garbage, low things, low vibratory energy, low vibratory things, and the big part of the focus is on money. So what do you think is going to be fed by that? Money is going to take the biggest precedence. People are going to want to put more attention on that, and that beast is going to grow. You got to put your attention on freedom. You have to put your attention on morality. And that means understanding why those things are being diminished in the world. It's not to say, well, don't look at the reason why it's those things are going away. No, you have to look at the reason why it's going away. Because if you don't know the reason why any problem exists, you're powerless to solve the problem. You don't know the causal factor that led to the effect. And this is one thing that you'll see is very, very mysteriously, or maybe not so mysteriously, maybe conspiratorially missing from the quote-unquote New Age movement, is the law of cause and effect. They don't talk about that one much. Very occasionally you'll hear it. But they'll very rarely talk about if you don't pay attention to the causal factor, you cannot solve the problem because you're operating in the realm of effect. And you're never going deeper than that to the realm of causality to understand what generated the problem to begin with, because you may have to look at negative things there in the realm of causality. And this New Age movement, this fake aspect of the New Age movement, they want to try to take people's focus and energy off of those causal factors. And that's where they're not doing a service to humanity. They're doing a big disservice by telling people, don't look at that. You're telling people not to look at the negative, you're telling them not to look at a cause. And again, if they don't understand the cause, they can never understand what generated the effect, what generated the manifested reality that they are experiencing, and therefore there is no way to change that reality. So part of what we're going to do, Tim, I'm really glad you brought up this aspect, okay? Because part of what the organizers of the Free Your Mind conference are getting ready to do coming up in the next few days, actually, it'll be next weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th here in Philadelphia. We are going to directly engage the New Age movement community because there is a big conference coming up here in Philadelphia that a lot of New Agers are going to be present at. It's called the Mind, Body, Spirit Expo. And I'm not telling people about it to promote the event, although I think there is some good that you can pick up by checking out an event like this. Absolutely, there is good there. But we are going there to hand out flyers for the Free Your Mind 2 conference coming up in Philadelphia to try to take the large numbers that exist in this community and try to get them to understand some of the really deeper occult aspects that are taking place around us, and start to get these people who partially care, but they are still lacking a lot of knowledge about causal factors that have led to the problems we are experiencing. And they need to be exposed to more information like what we're going to be putting out at the Free Your Mind 2 conference. So we're going to do heavy promotion at the Mind, Body, Spirit Expo for the Free Your Mind 2 conference this weekend in Philadelphia. So the organizers will be there. Many of us will be. And we'll be handing out, we got 5,000 full-color postcards already made, ready to go. And we're going to be handing them out like crazy at the Mind, Body, Spirit Expo next weekend in Philadelphia. So, Tim, great points. What else do you have for us?
Yeah, just some line with what you were explaining. I like to think of the law of attraction more as the power of thought. It's the power of thought on the field of consciousness that exists all around us. Otherwise, the way we think and how it affects through cause and effect and natural law,
That's exactly right.
A book that I would like to recommend that's helped me a lot understand this stuff is As a Man Thinketh by James Allen.
Great book.
It's a very easy and short read, and but the knowledge is infinite in its wisdom. And he says that a man's character in being is the complete sum of his thoughts.
That's exactly right.
So yeah, that's a great book, and I've read that about 7 times now.
It's a short read too for anybody that wants a good introduction to this, way of changing one's paradigm and worldview, and understanding how we're drawing realities to us by what we perceive as possible. It's definitely a great read and a short read as well.
Okay, so I just have one more thing on positive thinking, something that...
Tim, real quick, before you get into your next point, I would like to recommend a couple of books. I mentioned his name last week, Richard W. Wetherill, and these are also short and easy to digest works. The book Tower of Babel by Richard Wetherill. And you could download these first of all, you can go to his website and download them for free, or you can get them right from the podcast section. I actually added his works to the Natural Law, the first podcast that I did on natural law, which I believe was back in the 60s. In the 70s, someplace. I can't recall the exact podcast, maybe 72 or something like that. But any of Richard Wetherill's works I would also highly recommend Right is Might by Richard Wetherell. Right is Might. Also, there's a good synthesis of his work that was written, I believe, posthumously, and it's called Be Right or Go Wrong. And this is about essentially the law of attraction, the way that our actions and behaviors are either in harmony with natural law or in contravention to it, and therefore we're ultimately generating, the consequences, the experience, and it is if we're operating within the parameters of natural law, the experience is going to be positive and beneficial, and if we, completely trounce other people's natural law rights and refuse to live in harmony with the laws of right and wrong, then our experience is ultimately going to be negative and painful and full of suffering. So he does a really great job of explaining it, the simplicity, and understanding how that we can really come to understand this at a deep level and test it in our own lives. So those two books, Tower of Babel and Right is Might by Richard Wetherell, and also, again, the synthesis of his work, which can be found on his site or on the What on Earth is Happening podcasts on natural law, which is called Be Right or Go Wrong. If people are interested in doing a little bit of reading when it comes to the real laws of attraction, then this is one of the gentlemen I would recommend. As the previous caller brought up, I would also highly recommend the work of Hermetics known as the Kabbalion. So definitely check that out as well. So Tim, continue your next point.
Yes. The idea that everything happens for a reason helps me a lot with positive thinking.
Yes.
If everything happens for a reason, the one negative thing isn't negative anymore. Everything happens to you for a reason. That reason is for you to learn from it.
Exactly.
To learn is consciousness, and then what you learn is up to you to find out. So that's that everything happens for a reason. Instead of saying, when something bad happens to you, oh, why me? You then think, well, what can I learn from this? And,
that's right. We're driving. That's what it is. We're driving. No one's directing this big spaceship Earth except us. We're the ones who are driving our experience here. And we have to own that responsibility. We have to come to terms with that and own it. If it's happening here on Earth, we are doing it. Okay, and I'm, of course, the exception of nature as far as the forces of the physical aspects of nature, hurricanes, earthquakes, and hey, maybe even in a lot of ways we might be doing those things too in the modern day at least, but barring those acts of God, quote unquote, we are generating our experience here on Earth. We're the ones driving. And we have to, again, come to terms with that and own it and accept the responsibility that goes hand in hand with that understanding. Great point, Tim. What else?
I just wanted to, I thought of something else because you brought up the Kabbalion. I think the law of attraction ties in with the 7 principles of Hermeticism, especially principle number 1, the all is mind, and also the principle of correspondence, that what you put out comes back to you. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
2 of the most powerful pieces of understanding that anyone can incorporate. Understanding that mind is the generator of everything that we're doing, and ultimately it's what we care about that is acting as the prime generator. What we are taking from our heart and putting into our mind. The heart's really the generator. It's about what we care about. And that's where it ultimately stems from, the heart. And that's what's driving what we're doing with our mind. Our care is driving the mind. But the mind ultimately then expresses what we experience. That's the principle of mentalism, that the all is a mental construct. It is a creation of mind. And the principle of correspondence, I can't say enough about that. And hopefully my breakdowns of natural law have helped people to really understand that the universe is a mirror, and that which we are putting out into it is coming back to us, that we will experience that which we generate and put out there into the field of creation, it will always come back to us and we will experience it. We are experiencing ourselves ultimately. We are made of is what our experience will be also made of. That will be the quality of our experience. So absolutely powerful points that people need to accept, to understand and accept. It isn't about belief. It is about these are forces that exist in nature. This is just how the laws of the universe work. Man didn't create them. We are subject to them. You know, there's one thing you're not going to be free of. You're not going to be free from natural law. Natural law is what this entire domain is governed by. And again, if you can figure out a way out of the physical universe, you let me know where there is no natural law, you know, and there are there's action without consequence. Because in this entire universe, there is no such thing as action without consequence. What you do, you're free to do what you will. That's free will. But you're not free to do what you will and have no consequence. So we have free will, but not without consequence. There is free will with consequence. This is a free will with consequence domain. That's where you're at, in a domain where there is free will with consequence. And that's what the law of correspondence is all about. And in understanding that, it has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with belief systems. It is just like understanding gravity or any other force that exists within nature. It is simply that which is. Man did not create those laws. They are in effect. You are bound by them. The end for all time. And again, if you don't like that, you let me know when you could figure out a way out of this universe, and I'll be right behind you. But until then, you better understand and accept that there are laws in place that govern the consequences of our behaviors. And then try to bring your behavior into accordance with those laws so you don't generate self-inflicted suffering. It would probably be a wise thing. But hey, most people don't want to hear that. They want to think they can act without consequence, and they're going to bring down heaps of suffering down upon them, just like bringing a building right down on their head, you know, detonating a building and being in it at the same time. And that's what largely humanity is doing here on Earth at this current time. So, Tim, phenomenal points. Do you have anything else for us?
I just wanted to say that, you know, you've helped me a whole lot understand these fundamental laws, and I just want to thank you for that. And that's all I got. So have a good night, man.
Tim, always a pleasure, man. You keep up the good work that you're doing, my friend. Great call. Always a pleasure to hear from Tim Smith. Again, Tim is one of the organizers of the Free Your Mind Conference, and the Free Your Mind Conference would not be what it is without his help. So, let's move on to another call. Let me give the call-in number once again. We'll be taking calls throughout the end of the show. Not many people in the queue, so if you want to call in, you'll pretty much be bumped right to the top of the queue. You shouldn't have to hold on for that long. So call-in number, 866-841-1065. Once again, toll-free. Call-in number to join us. We're talking about solutions. Anything that we've covered in the solutions section. I would also really like to hear from you about the responsibility of teaching people the information that we've been talking about here since day one on What on Earth is Happening. If you're doing it, how is it going? If you're not doing it, why aren't you? So I'd like to hear that dynamic. The toll-free number to join us, 866-841-1065. Okay, let's go back. I believe that this is Kevin, who had a problem with his phone earlier. Let's go back to him and see if it's okay. Kevin, are you with us? Area code 602, you're live on What on Earth is Happening. Welcome.
Oh, hi, it's Ivan in Phoenix. Can you hear me a little better now?
Ivan, I can hear you much better now. There's still a little bit of static, but you're definitely coming through okay now.
Okay. Well, it's not probably static. It's a bunch of background noise. I'm at work. And there's so much I really want to talk to you about and put out there, but
that is understood, and we'll deal with it because I can at least hear your voice well now. So you go right ahead.
Okay, I'll just try and throw everything out here in a minute, and then you can take it from there.
Right.
I guess I'm pretty much your media correspondent because a lot of my stuff is referenced from movies and TV shows. I don't know if you're familiar with the TV show Fringe.
Yes, I am.
It has during the I don't know if you've noticed during the opening credits.
I have not watched the whole season. I'm checking out season 1 right now. People think that that's odd because this is something I really have into, but I've just actually done really getting into it a little bit, watching for allegorical connections and seeing where they're going. So I'm kind of on that. Check.
Okay, well, you've probably noticed during the opening credits that they have a lot of words coming across the screen, like quantum physics and alternative universe and stuff like that. Well, this season is pretty interesting that during the opening credits, they show the words community, joy, education, free thought, and the last word they show is freedom wrapped around in barbed wire. And everyone and all those words are inside a prison. So it's pretty interesting that that's what they're showing as our future, because this season takes place in the future.
Very interesting. Yeah, I was not aware of that, so thanks for that. I'll definitely be working my way up to that.
Right. And then another thing, 2 more media-related things. The film's Atlas Shrugged. The second part is out. I was not aware, never got into Anne Rice's work. Right. After watching these 2 films, that's also very interesting concepts there that can be taken in either way, via the rich to, maintain society the way it is, or for the regular people like us to realize why things are the way they are.
I think there's a lot of value in Rand's work. I don't think that she was fully enlightened by any stretch of the imagination, or understood a lot of the aspects of the conspiratorial system that we're all embedded in. But there is a lot of value in the free market aspects of her work when it comes to promoting innovation and freedom. So I would say she's someone I partially agree with, and then there's some aspects of her work that I don't agree with, but there's definitely value in studying her work. Sure. I would definitely recommend people to check out Public Philosophy. It leans a bit too into the selfish side for me, and it's an altruism that's which I cannot her with at all. But
right. And one last quick thing.
Aspect.
There's another.
Yes.
One last quick thing then. I still have a few more things, but real quick, also on the movie side, there's a film that came out this weekend called Cloud Atlas by the Wachowski siblings, the ones who did The Matrix, and I've seen this film already twice. It is excellent. It's in the top 10 list for me, and it's very, a lot of information that you would probably love and pick up on, and listeners of the show, I would recommend to go see it.
Film again?
Cloud Atlas. Based on a book that came out in 2004.
Okay.
Right. Cloud Atlas. There's a lot of good dialogue and concepts in this film also. One particular dialogue that stands out for me is one of the main characters says, every crime and every good deed creates our future.
Wow. Exactly.
Yeah, it's very, very, very deep, very, fundamental kind of ideas that, the Wachowski brothers put into film.
Yes, a lot of people are really getting the idea and putting it out there that we are creating the experience that we then have to make. We're making our bed and we have to lay in it. And that's all it really comes down to. And it's good to see a lot of people are putting us forward in allegories. So I'll check that one out, definitely.
Right. And then one quick comment, or just something else I'll throw out there. This past weekend, Saturday morning, was David Icke's Wembley Arena lecture, conference or whatever presentation. I don't know if you caught some of it or watched it.
I did not. A friend of mine ordered it and is up in Sarah not with I'm going to about the next day. But I heard it was successful and got a lot out of it.
Right.
Did a marathon.
Yes, it was very informative.
Yes.
Lots of good information from David Icke again. New concepts too regarding Saturn and the moon and stuff like that. My thing is that I had a meetup group set up for that,
Yes.
and I don't know how your meetup groups go back there in Phoenix, in Philadelphia. This touches on your topic of responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
I get about 10 to 15 RSVPs for these meetups.
Yep.
But the disappointing part is that only about 4 or 5 actually show up. So there are people that know the information
Right.
or know of the information, but they don't really take the time to put in the action, the effort
That's
to be
right.
part of it and participate in it. So that's a little bit of the thing holding us back as a movement or getting things off the ground.
I agree with you, and I will share a little bit of the experience that we're having as part of the Truth, Freedom, Prosperity documentary night meetups. I mean, it could be possibly because they just think that they know this information, but we get into discussions there that I guarantee you that people who could really learn a lot of the discussions that we engage in. We're also seeing very low numbers. We used to have 25, 30 people come out, and now over the last couple of meetings, we've had probably under, which is not encouraging, and especially now at the time. The critical time that we're in right now, and how this is feeling a sense of urgency now more than ever. So I'm kind of discouraged in seeing the numbers of people who are willing to come out and spend their time to edify themselves, getting discussion. I think these discussions, whether the films are the most likely to have. That's not what we're being. We're spread out.
Wow, Mark, I could hardly make you out here. I'm losing the call some, so I'll let you go, and I'll try and call back one of your next shows then.
All right, Ivan, thanks so much. Great call. Okay, so at least that'll knock out the background noise, and I'll continue with what I was saying. We're seeing a diminished amount of numbers in people who are coming out in the documentary screening and discussion evenings. Even the last fundraiser for the Free Your Mind conference was very, very low on people, even though I gave a presentation that I worked for weeks at really putting something very nice together. And I thought that the information there was top-notch, and yet we had a very disappointing turnout. It's very difficult to get people to sustain their energy, sustain their effort, and that's what is the solution. It's going to take sustained will, constant willpower, constant effort, constant work. That's what the process of alchemy is about. Now is no time to be quitting. I feel the low surge of energy as well. I said that a couple of weeks back or last week, and there's no question about it. The times we're living in are, as far as knowing what's going on truly, it's draining on the psyche. And that's why you have to build the will, build up the will. I understand with the strength of will that I have, I still feel the pressure to it's not having enough of an impact, or, we're not getting enough done, or it's too much of the negative dynamic and we're never going to overturn it. But again, even if that's where my current thinking is in any particular day, I still say it doesn't matter. I'm going to do what the right thing is for that reason alone, because it's the right thing, for no other reason. Again, the idea of Smith grabbing Neo by the neck and saying, why do you continue to fight me when you know you can't win? Or, at least the dynamic looks like you can't win. And his answer is simply because I choose to. Free will. That's how I'm going to use it. I'm not going to squander my free will. I'm going to use it and employ it through constant effort. Even if I feel like giving up, I'm not going to. And believe me, I am sometimes on the verge of giving up. But I make a continual renewal in the moment to press forward. And that's the kind of effort that this is going to take to get done. If you don't have that, get off the battlefield. Because, again, if you think this is going to be an easy, stretch, and it's not going to be an uphill climb, you're sorely mistaken. I didn't say it would be, difficult to understand. It's simple, but easy and simple are two different things, okay? It's not going to be easy. Where we've worked ourselves, the corner we've worked ourselves into, it will not be easy. But the truth is always simple, and it requires no special magical effort to understand. To create that change, though, is going to be difficult and require a Herculean effort of will. And we should psychologically prepare ourselves for that encounter. Because we are pedaling uphill. There's no question of that. But, the numbers of people, again, to go back to Ivan's point that he was making about being disappointed about numbers, it's the same. We're seeing the same dynamic here in Philadelphia. People say that they're going to come out, and then the turnouts are always less than the RSVPs. But again, I think it's because a lot of people are feeling that pressure, and they're down on things. It's up to us to renew it and to come up with some creative things to regenerate their interest, to help them make that renewal of will and effort. That's what it's all about. And if we're going to do that, if we're going to be effective teachers in that regard, or at least way showers, you could even look at it as, if you don't even like the word teacher, just a way shower, then we have to at least steel ourselves against that ebb of energy that we're feeling and say, I'm going to make a continuous renewal because I know it's the right thing. And then try to reach down into ourselves and generate some creative energy and put something forward that might rejuvenate their interest. That's the best advice I can give at the current time, because I'm feeling the same thing you are, my friend. We're seeing the same thing here. Does that mean I'm going to give up? Absolutely not. So let's go back to the phones. We still have some callers on the line for this last half hour of the show. Caller from the 513 area code, 513. You're live on What on Earth is Happening. Welcome.
513 would be from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Bob, welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, Bob from Cincinnati.
Thank you, Mark. It is your friend Bob from Cincinnati. Mark, please, and I know that we do use you as a crutch. Please don't be disheartened, sir. It is tiresome. There is an array of electromagnetic low frequency ELF waves, yes, constantly bombarding us, weakening our sense of strength. I myself can literally hear the frequency in the quiet of the night. It used to be at 3 or 4 in the morning, one could quietly gather their thoughts and meditate as the hum of the natural day of the modern world had subsided. Now this nonstop electromagnetic low-frequency wave is running through this array of towers. We must be aware of it. I'm like Don Quixote striking the cell towers with my lance. But, and you're right, it is sad that our strength, our resolve does weaken. But please keep your resolve up, sir.
Trying to. I'm doing my best.
And I know you were recently under some kind of computer attack from your last show. You spoke of all manner of computer things going down.
It wasn't an attack. It was simply hardware failure from a design flaw that had existed, and I did get it taken care of, and it was a painful process, but I'm working to ensure that even if something similar to that does happen again, I have some insurance in place and backup, and of course I meticulously back up my actual material and documents on my computer. That was no worry ever, but it was simply a hardware issue that I at the time really did not even have the funds to solve the problem, and a friend helped me out by coming forward with some funds, which I thanked John last week on the show. If he hadn't done that, I might still be down. So that was just great that a friend helped come forward with that financial effort when it was needed as well. So yeah, I don't believe it was an attack from anyone outside. It was simply a hardware failure. But again, when that strikes and you don't have the means for correcting it or the financial means for getting what you need, then that could be a big problem. And that was a problem with me for over a week. It maybe into the second week, and things didn't really work out that second week, so I couldn't come right back onto the air then. But it's all worked out now, and again, I'm working to take a measure of insurance so things flow a little bit more smoothly for me here in the technology department. Luckily, I have a lot of skills in that regard because that's what I used to do for a living. I worked as a technical specialist, so even with that, this really set me back a little bit. But it's worked out now, and things seem to be going pretty smoothly. So, thanks for your concern in that regard.
Oh, we're all concerned, Mark. We appreciate your fine work, as always. Two things, a comment and a question. The comment is, congratulations on securing heavy hitters to the Free Your Mind 2 conference.
Yes.
In the form of Mark Phillips and Kathy O'Brien. Very interesting. Should be quite a treat.
It's going to be great. I'm so looking forward to their information that they're going to present, and it's an honor to have them as part of the conference.
Absolutely. Their story is intriguing, to be sure. And then a question, Mark. I know it's a negative combination of numbers, but the 77 keeps popping up in my world, and I remembered that it was a dark occultic configuration. Can you remind me, please, and others, why it is a dark occult symbol 77? Thank you again for your voice, Mark. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, I could briefly talk about some numerology in that regard. And 77 is generally known as the number of sorcery in the occult. I would say that the one exception to that rule would be Crowley's book 77, which I think has very powerful spiritual truths contained within it, which is known as Liber Oz, the Book of Oz. But to go back to the question about why 77 is seen as a sorcerer's number and dark occultism, that's because it is being looked at in connection to the number 777 in occult or gematria terms. 777 is seen as the number of man's completion or man's activation, if you will. So you're seeing the number 77 in relationship to the 3 sevens, the 777. The 777 generally represents, again, man's consciousness coming into full activation and into a state of non-duality, meaning that as one thinks, so one feels, so one acts. And there is no contradiction. There is no separation between those 3 modalities of consciousness. So your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions are in alignment and non-duality. That is man's positive, awakened, enlightened, activated state from which he is going to generate true freedom. If one of those components is in failure or missing altogether, then the solution is not possible to enact. It is not possible to create true freedom. It is not possible to create one's reality wisely, because you have to have your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions all in place and working properly toward the same end, in non-contradiction, non-duality. Therefore, the 77 represents 2 of those 3 aspects, but nothing in the way of the other, in the way of the third. And of course, when it comes to the dark occult and sorcery in general, the 2 aspects that are complete are the thoughts and the actions. In other words, the intellect and the will have come together to their full expression. But the thing that is the zero is the emotions, is the heart. So there is no emotion present, and this is what a sorcerer is. A sorcerer is one with no emotions, but who has intellect and the willpower to back up the intellect, to carry out what they want to do. but there is no true care. There is no true heart involved. And therefore, that is why 77 in certain occult systems of numerology has become associated with the dark occult or the concept of sorcery in general. And I would say, the exception to that is Book Oz that Crowley wrote, which is about the expression of the natural rights of man, very much in harmony with natural law, as a matter of fact, and talks about man being the generator of our experience here, that we are actually the creator of our experience, and then goes on to list the universal rights of man. And it's something I haven't talked about much because I haven't really gotten much into Thelemic philosophy on the show other than to comment about what Thelema in general represents and some of the things, some of the concepts numerologically and in gematria that it works with. And perhaps I should do a whole show on the Thelemic philosophy in general, the general tenets of Thelema at some future point, maybe break down a couple of Crowley's writings like the Book of Oz, Liber 77, or perhaps parts of the Book of Lies that he wrote, which is an interesting name, doesn't mean what people think it does, but part of that is chapter 23, which is one of my favorite pieces of Crowley's writings. I've never really talked about the numerology of the number 23 either, which I'd like to get into at some future point. I think that's very powerful and almost as powerful as the number 93 when it comes to conceptual ideas that it represents. You know, the chapter 23 in the Book of Lies is all about getting out of the mental prison that most of us are living in, freeing ourselves from mental bondage, from the head cage. The beginning of Book 23 is Cephale KG, Cephale Kappa Gamma. Cephale in Greek means head, and then Kephale is the exact correct pronunciation, and then the letters KG is green language for cage. So Kephale Kappa Gamma, head, cage. Kephale means head in Greek, and then KG, cage, Kappa Gamma. So he wrote in code. He wrote in cipher. And, you know, the number 23 is all about getting out. You know, it represents escape, not in the sense of escapism, but of release from attachment, of getting out of your current shackles, of your constraints that you're currently under. They're shackling you and enslaving you. So it's all about getting out of the head cage. Maybe I'll break that down at some future point. Maybe, you know, who knows? Maybe we could do a show on Thelema on Occult Empire, Bob. Who knows? You know, we could tackle that at some future point. Or maybe, again, I'll do a show on it here on What on Earth is Happening as another breakdown of an occultic philosophy. But that's the breakdown of 77 as I understand it in gematria terms, and why that has become known as associated with dark occultism and sorcery. So I hope that answers the question. Let's go back to the phones. Area code 250. You're live on What on Earth is Happening. Welcome.
Hello, Mark.
Hey, who am I speaking with?
My name is Brad.
Hi, Brad. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right today.
Great.
Just calling in because I've listened to you for quite a while, and a couple little things maybe you haven't covered, and I'm kind of interested in on your take on them, so they're
Sure.
kind of questions, really. The first question is, how does natural law view pro-life, pro-choice abortion?
Yes, that is definitely doing harm. So harmony with natural law would not include the practice of abortion. Harm is being created to a living being.
Okay, so natural law wouldn't be affected, of course, by rape or incest. It wouldn't see those two things. Is that correct?
Those who would be working in harmony with natural law would be attempting to get at the root causes for why anyone would do those practices, and therefore address those causes, which would then not lead to those eventualities, and the problem would take care of itself.
Okay. So if it did happen, then hopefully it was resolved before it happened?
Well, this is the entire problem. It's a chicken and egg scenario. People say, well, what about the people who are going to murder people or are going to steal from people? What do you do about those people? Well, yes, you have to address those people. You have to deal with those people. And, you know, it isn't about drafting laws that say you can't do things that are already in contravention to natural law. It's about simply taking action if someone is going to take those behaviors and act upon them. But the problem already exists. The failure is already present because you allowed someone to grow up in the worldview poisoning that would lead to that condition. You didn't deal with the problem. You didn't nip it in the bud, so to speak, through proper education in the developmental period of youth. And this is the entire problem. We're a nation of grown children. We're a world of grown children that know nothing about how the laws of nature operate and think we're adults. And there's 80-year-old people who are mental midgets, mental infants, complete spiritual and mental infants who have never thought about anything worthwhile or anything higher than the most base of functions and needs in their entire lives and are totally self-serving and totally reptilian mindset. And then there are 13-year-olds with profound spiritual understanding. So age is meaningless. Physical age is meaningless when it comes to knowledge about how things actually operate. It's all about, were you nurtured? Were you truly raised out of base consciousness? How was that computer that we call the human brain programmed? What kind of software went into it during the formative years of development, which largely determines the worldview and behaviors of an individual? And that can be changed, even if it's been very badly programmed, as I was. When I was a child, the worldview that I was taught by my family members was atrocious, an atrocity. And it took me years to overturn that programming. But I did it in an act of will. And this all comes down to the effects. You cannot treat the effects. So when we're talking about what people are willing to do for money or to sate their base desires, rape, incest, theft, murder, etc., these are the effects. The effects cannot be treated. You have to treat the causal factors. And the causal factors is the programming that we're receiving, the miseducation that we're receiving, that has nothing to do with truth and has nothing to do with an accurate understanding of how the laws of nature function. That's where the problem has to be addressed from, and then you will not manifest those behaviors. The society will not manifest those behaviors. Why do you think these behaviors are largely not present, and the manifestations of those behaviors are largely not present in truly shamanic cultures? Because they treat the issue and nip it in the bud. They teach people the true way of being in the world that doesn't lead to chaotic conditions like that from the time that they're young. And they are not permitted to refuse those teachings. They hammer them forcefully into the child. And people will say, oh, that's a form of mind control. Yes, it is. It's mind control. That's the time to engage true, positive mind control. You're putting programming, you're putting software into the brain of a child. So then what gets output on the screen is beautiful and harmonious instead of a piece of junk, which the parents of today's society are children themselves. And even people who do have a somewhat adult mindset from a spiritual perspective, they don't want to do that work. They want to leave it to somebody else. This is what responsibility is all about. This is what the shirking of responsibility is about. A friend of mine, or I don't even want to use the word friend because I want to be more selective about who I'll use that word to describe. An associate of mine who I do not dislike, I actually like, at a point in the past said to me, I'm not concerned about other people's education. That's not my responsibility. And I said, you obviously don't understand what's driving the dynamic. the miseducation. And if you know, then you have a responsibility to try to balance that by putting out the information and helping them to rewrite that software code that is in their brain and is driving their worldview and their behaviors. And yes, it is your responsibility to educate others, especially if you really know the dynamic that's operating. So I hope that, in general, helps you to understand my take on something as complex of an issue as when people bring up abortion. Is it in harmony with natural law? It is most definitively not in harmony with natural law. It is not a right. It is a wrong. You are doing something to another being that is harmful, and therefore it's not in harmony with natural law, regardless really of why it occurred. The best way to deal with that bad situation is to avert it by teaching people how to behave in the world that is in harmony with natural law, so you don't have people who are going out there raping people. So, and again, rape is one of the big four incursions against natural law, the big transgressions against natural law: murder, rape, theft, trespass. So again, people want to bring up all of these exceptions. It's the old adage, two wrongs don't make a right. Just because someone happened to do that, there's another being that's involved now. And the right decision would be to figure out a situation in a communal aspect. The community would need to step up and address that wrongdoing by doing right by the mother and the child at that point. I don't think aborting the fetus is the right solution, personally. And there are many who will be outraged by me saying that and disagree, and they're fine to go right ahead and do that. I know the difference, the definitive, objective difference between right and wrong, and abortion 100% stands on the side of wrong.
Am I still on the line?
Yes.
Okay, great. I didn't know if you put me on mute. The only circumstance that I see would affect it in a very strange way would be the circumstance of a mother during birth and having problems with that birth, and
right.
The doctor having to decide whether to save the mother or the child.
Right. Now, this has come up throughout human history, and of course, you know, there's, again, more delicate sensibilities involved there, but that would have to be a medical decision based on probably what would be more likely to happen in the event that you didn't have access to, you know, modern medical facilities to do a cesarean section or something of that nature. So I would probably tend to agree with you on that side, yes.
Yeah, it's one of the exceptions to, it's probably one of the only ones I can think of to
right.
natural law that one has to make a decision.
Right. Fair enough, yes.
Okay. The other question I have, and hopefully it doesn't get you too much fired up, it's just a question. Basically, it's a little bit more on the non-supportive dominator side, which
sure.
is kind of stepping back.
Sure.
And I'd like to say that as far as I'm concerned, the real solution to this problem is the children of the future, because without the proper education, we're just going to keep doing the same things we've been doing.
I agree.
So that is really the biggest solution, is teach your children
That's right.
the difference between right and wrong.
That's right.
But the other quick question I had was, well, it's not really quick, I guess, is at what level do we decide, and unfortunately we have to decide, do we draw a line whether life is insignificant? I mean that because, you know, you talked about animals and humans and trees, but there's other life forms on this planet that are much smaller
right.
and
sure.
Make up a larger amount of actual life on this planet. And we're into, you know, insects, bacteria,
right.
single-celled organisms.
Sure.
Where do they fall on the scale of natural law and deciding whether their lives
right.
or their existence are just as important
right.
as ours?
Well, look, I wouldn't advocate people being in abject terror of going out and stepping on their lawn because they might step on an ant in the soil someplace. This, you know, we have to apply some degree of common sense and recognition that, okay, we are affecting physical matter that may involve some smaller forms of life. You know what? I'll give you an example of this. The other day, I did the dishes that were in my sink after a meal, okay? And I set a pot off to the side, and there was some water, trickling off the edge and pooling in the pot. and a fly flew into the water at the bottom of the pot. And I actually saw this happen and saw the fly drowning and struggling in the little minor pool of, droplets that had gathered in the bottom of the pot after I had done the dishes for the night. And I tried to, move the water out so that the fly wouldn't drown, and it was in pretty bad shape. It looked like it was going to die. And I said, well, look, what, do I just get, since I'm going to dry these and put them off the shelf, do I just, smash it when I'm taking a rag to it or something? No. I set the pot off to the side. It's not going to harm me to sit there for a little bit. I let the fly dry out, and I came back, and he had flown away. So for the couple of minutes it took me to make a decision, well, do I just end this, or, has he suffered too much, or is he already drowned, really? I let time sort it out and figure, if he's going to dry out, then he'll be okay and he'll fly away, and it's, what's the big deal? So that's what I did. And what I'm trying to say is, if it's our intent, we have to make a decision and make an intent and say, am I going to interact with what's there now and I know is actively present and there, and make a decision to be kind, or make a decision to ignore it and just, do whatever. So, again, that's another delicate sensibility.